Good morning, everyone. I'm a little bit behind on giving my early raid thoughts, and that's just because my guild's timer kind of happened to coincide with me not being able to do that. Um, we launched our raid. What is today? Sunday on Friday night, and unfortunately, I got so overzealous that I ended up doing all of my attempts while sitting on the couch watching Smile 2 with my wife. And then the next morning I woke up and I said, "You know what? I want to film this thing. Oh wait, I've already done my raid. This is a problem." Um Thankfully I do have guildmates that trust me and have allowed me to tinker with their accounts a little bit. But I do want to make clear before we go into this that I'm not going to show you how to three-man certain teams to get the maximum score. That's not my vibe. That's not my thing. If you want to do that, there are two great resources. Number one would be the Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes raid server on Discord. There are some very, very helpful and friendly people there. And number two would be Scribe, who I see has been posting a lot of videos about min maxing certain aspects of the raid. That's not particularly my purpose here. I have two things we're going to do with this video. The first is we're just going to talk about my initial reactions and thoughts and the positives and negatives. And the second is we're going to look at some of the math because I have seen a lot of postings and criticisms about the free to play aspect of the raid and how frustrating it is that there are so many new teams and not very many old teams. So we'll check out both of those things right after the intro. Okay, so like I said, right now I'm on a guild members account. Thank you, Bobblefett, for trusting me here. And I did a first version of this video last night and did end up posting some of his higher scores here, um, which is fine because again, that's not our purpose. But just to kind of give you an idea of my own score, we can do it right from the raid area. So I hit a 7.1. I managed to max my clones without any remod, and that was easy. I was able to do that in 2 tries, having not watched any resources on the raid at that point. I was able to max my bad batch at R5 for 1.2 million. That did take some pretty significant retrying. I do believe that it's more a modding issue than anything else, and the fact that before this particular raid, I had literally never even used the team, so have no idea what I'm doing. I was able to max my Keller and Beck and my Jocasta new team at the R7 tier in, I believe it was 2 tries. And then I threw Hondo solo at tier 0, and I threw just some Vanguard crap units at tier 0 at well. And that's kind of where we get to that 7.1 with a few extra points missing in the interim because of, well, this one little neat trick here for anyone like me that didn't realize this in the original their original iteration of the raid. Although you only need to kill Fox, Oppo, and a single clone here to open up Lord Vader to getting attacked, if you do kill all of the clones, you end up with extra points so that you don't have to face an enraged Vader at the end, right? So facing enraged Vader at the end, he basically one-shots your units, and you'll end up losing, depending on the tier, in nominal amount. In tier 0, it ends up being like 50,000 points. But being able to do it this way, you'll get that max pretty easily. So actually, let's talk about scoring first. I know that there's been some criticism about the free to play aspect of this, and I just kind of wanted to point out with my spreadsheet here, right? I've talked about this a little bit over the last week or so. I do want to give a shout out, like, once again, to the raid server. I know you can't click this link right here, but I will leave it in the description of the video. To Pariah over at the server for checking in with me and giving me a little bit of advice, and to Belloc, who is a raid server admin, and she is also a common and constant contributor to my own Discord, who honestly put in a lot more of the work than I did on making sure that certain aspects of this sheet made sense, right? And I know she has been working on the Zeta priority lists. I don't believe Bad Batch is done yet. She's been working on this to kind of let people know what Zetas are mandatory, which ones are okay, which ones, like Disguised Clone Troopers, Clever Ruse, is actually hinders your team. Though I don't think in a significant enough amount that it matters from my own testing. She's put in all of that work, and I appreciate her a lot. So thank you, Belloc, for that. More importantly, we have our confirmed score page, and that confirmed score page is just me tracking what we've seen from the community so far, using different team compositions. So essentially, it looks like pretty much all of the new team compositions can beat all of the higher tiers. This may change pretty quickly, but I have not yet seen a Keller and Beck team without Jocasta Nu hitting the top tier. And then, although we haven't seen like Hondo or Emphys at 5 stars soloing, we have seen Relic Enfys, Relic Hondo, Relic Tarkin being able to solo that bottom tier. And that's pretty significant because Tarkin is a GL requirement, so he is a common tune to have at Relics, even for players in the earlier game. Hondo is a Dr. Afro requirement. Dr. Afro did have a Lightspeed bundle, so he is also a very common character, on top of the fact that we have GL Hondo coming out. And although Enfys is not a requirement in her own right, at least not yet, she is a very common tune to have at Relics because of her soloing capabilities in GAC, right? So there are some options for getting some points. What I want to point out here, though, is if we just look at this Keller and Beck team with Shakti, and I'm sure there are other Jedi, like certain Jedi that work better than others, but essentially and effectively, 3 random Jedi, Shakti and Keller and Beck, are able to hit some of these higher tiers of points. Shakti is a requirement. I believe it's for JMK, but I'm not 100% off the top of my head. And Keller and Beck is a requirement for Bo-Katan Mandalore, who is a top tier guild requirement that a lot of guilds push pretty early on at Relic 7. So if we look at just this team and bring a team of Vanguards to Relic 7, right, that is 1.8 million points right there. Now, assuming you don't have anything else new, a Hondo solo is going to give you 300,000. And I did that without remodding my Hondo at all, and his mods are not super great, right? That's another 300,000 there for 2.1. Enfys Nest is another 300,000 there for 2.4. So that's 3 teams right there. Tarkin solo at tier 0, that's another 300,000 points for 2.7. And then you can throw together a junk Vanguard team, which is really just the random nobodies at tier 0. But the reality is that Bad Batch, the new Bad Batch team, not only has been farmable for a little while now, but also had very significant bonus drops. But even if we just assume that you do them at tier 0 for 300,000 points, That right there brings you to 3 million points. And if your guild averages that 3 million points that are very, very, very easily free to play friendly, you are looking at the eighth box in the raid, right? So the 147 box. That's with almost no effort at all, right? Pretty considerable. And I really want anyone watching this to kind of think about that when they're talking to their guild and they're just saying, oh, just do one battle and do this and call it a day. Those 300,000 tier zeros do add up pretty quickly. We will be keeping this sheet updated as best as possible as new information comes out, as we see the score page kind of shift around to help people out. And I will leave that in the description as well. But kind of going back to my likes and dislikes for this raid, the first thing that I want to say is that I am strongly positive on Order 66. I think that this raid is a significant step up from the last raid from Battle for Naboo. CG clearly has listened to the player base in that regard in giving us content that is more closely resembling what we want from content, especially content that you need to do 5 times a week for roughly a year. So I want to give major kudos, and when I offer some minor criticisms, I just want it remembered that we're talking about my idea of tweaking things a little bit versus actually structurally changing anything. First things first, the runs in Order 66 are super fast. Now, I'm going to show you a Tarkin solo at tier 0. This is not indicative of every tier, obviously. I want you to keep in mind, if you haven't run this raid yet, that all of the tiers really are very fast. Because he can solo and because he has an AoE, it does obviously go a little bit faster. But this is, we're at half score right now. We'll run these things just because. 2, 3, boom. I don't know how long it's been at this point, maybe a minute. And we are pretty close to finishing the run, right? Boom. Finished up, 300,000. I am not going to submit that because I want to play around with this a little bit later. But that's pretty indicative of every raid run here. And I am super, super, super happy about that. Another really nice thing is that all of the, well, it's good and bad. All of the RNG is very front loaded to the beginning of a match, right? Essentially right before you save this first Jedi, whether your run is going to be doing well or not. You don't have to get 7 waves in and then get stuck behind a droid decon and then you hope and pray not to hit an enraged timer. I can tell just from how the opening goes, like, oh, hey, it looks like we're going to lose this one, right? I can get out. That took me 20 seconds. While I don't particularly like doing refreshes and resets and the RNG at all, I am happy with the fact that it can all be done right in the beginning so that you don't have to worry about that. Another thing that I am liking with this raid is that mechanically, it's not. I don't have to remember 100 different things, right? There's not too much that I need to remember here. It effectively is the same for every team strategy wise. Hey, I gotta kill Fox because he has that commander ability. Hey, I gotta kill Oppo because he's a named unit. Hey, I have to kill literally only one more if I want 2 of these guys. And then I hit Lord Vader a bunch of times. I do have to watch out for his enrage timer, the execute timer, but for the most part, I don't have too much to worry about there. Some of the things that I'm not liking about this raid, especially considering the lower end of the game, is that a lot of these runs clearly are fairly mod dependent, which means that a lot of remodding is going to get done for a lot of players. And unfortunately, the remodding capabilities within the game itself really suck. Um, I don't even remember what he said on Discord yesterday, but Moonborn had said something about, I don't know, something obscene about he'd rather be stomped in the nuts 100 times than interact with the mod, the remodding process within game. Now, thankfully, I, and many other players do have hot utils, which is a third party thing that we end up having to pay for. Um, but that should not be indicative of the entire play economy or player base. And I do think that if CG is going to put us in positions where we are often going to have to remod our characters, they need to put into place a better system. The other thing that I am struggling with here is it doesn't really feel like there's any score progression. And what I mean by that is from my own ability to play this, I feel like I am either maxing the raid or getting no points at all, right? I can take Arkin at tier 0 and I can max that super easily. At tier 1, I'm not getting any points. With my R5 and my R7 squads, if I didn't end up getting Box down immediately and Oppo down immediately, all of my characters are getting hit with Order 66 and they're going to be dead and Jedi are going to die and I'm going to end with a score that's like 20 to 50,000. It doesn't feel like there's any in between. Again, it either feels like you get nothing or you're getting everything or very, very close to everything. So if you are on the lower end and you are struggling to gear up guys, you are not going to see these jumps where maybe you're doing tier 0 with a junk Vanguard team. You give that junk Vanguard team a bunch of gear levels. You hope to do them on tier 1. And your score is actually going to diminish because they're just not going to have the damage capability to get there. The other thing that I don't particularly like, but maybe I'm more lukewarm on, is that when we talk about these base difficulties, they don't really seem to correlate very much to my relic levels at all, right? Tier 1 is a requirement of G12. I know that this team of junk Jedi is not, well, Temple Guard's not junk, but Boba Fett doesn't have Jedi Master Mace Windu yet. I know that this team is not flavor of the month. I know it is not indicative of a solid team that's going to score you incredibly high points. But being that this is a G12 tier, I feel like I should reasonably be able to take these Relic 5 and Relic 7 characters and do better than I was doing at tier 0, right? But it seems like with the Order 66 and your characters dying so quickly that it's just not a possibility. All of that to say, though, is that even though I have less positive points, I do believe that those positive points significantly outweigh the negative points, right? The positives are huge time saver things, the negatives are very small criticisms of the raid in general. I am happy with Order 66. I understand why the early players are screaming that it is not free to play friendly, but again, I've shown you kind of how you can get a 3 million score without really putting much effort into it. I do look forward to testing more over the next couple weeks as my score progresses, as my guild score progresses, and I hope that everybody finds this easier and easier over time. Just remember that this is week 1, and the easiest ways to do things, the most efficient ways to do things are almost never found right away, right? So I hope that there is some useful information for you in here. And if you are from CG and watching this, again, um, my criticism is intended to be constructive. And I think that you guys did a great job with giving us what the community kind of wanted, and balancing the idea of, yes, we're a corporation and need to make money, with, yes, these players do want to enjoy what they're doing and having fun. With all of that said, I have a brunch to lead, so peace out and have a great rest of your day.